This is a boss that I really didn't care for at first, and like Melania, I would give it a try every once in a while. So now with Shadow of the Erdtree approaching, I want to have knowledge of every boss in preparation just in case of anything relating to the inspection requiring certain actions. I'm not a fan of projectiles in boss fights. Well, at least in boss fights from Dark Souls, Elden Ring, and etc. They're usually not executed well and rather annoying for me at least. This particular projectile is a splatter type. I recall this design in Artorias from Dark Souls and Orphan of Kos from Bloodborne, both equally bothersome. From Software takes this aspect I personally greatly dislike and turned it into a whole boss fight based around it. The catch is that it can be greatly reduced somewhat. Mohg the Omen is only the first phase of the true fight, but without the blood ritual. Learning how to handle this encounter helped me significantly for the true fight since it's not interrupted by blood ritual. And then the second phase wouldn't be a big deal since I could use consistency for comfort. I don't agree with most of the information from the Future Press guides. However, sometimes they'll slide in useful details in terms of observation and maneuvering. This being the fact that Mohg calms down on blood projectiles quite significantly when you don't distance yourself. That may seem obvious, however Mohg stays close most of the time and not constantly retreating like most bosses would. The only time this does happen is in the second phase of the true fight, but it's only to attack, not idle. There are moments where Mohg rains blood in an AoE, but it's not enough to force the player far away enough to trigger projectiles excessively. Also, there were moments where Mohg the Omen starts off with the blood rain attack upon entering the floodgate. I'm wondering why that occurs because it's basically over by the time you reach the other side of the arena. Figuring out the holdbacks and visual trickery was the most fascinating experience. The Trident Slam Swing switcheroo and the Blood Combustion blind spot was actually brilliant to learn and adapt to. Now we must address what makes the fight truly disappointing for me, and that's NIHIL. I am very aware that there is an item to reduce damage, however I was completely fine with drinking 3 sips instead. I absolutely hate this design choice. You have no skill-based alternative, you must stand there and take damage like it's a Final Fantasy boss. I really hope this doesn't become a reoccurrence, because personally taking damage feels like I'm failing and it's not a good experience regardless of what the lore indicates. Yes, I play Final Fantasy games, however I don't respect its combat anywhere near the level of appreciation I have for Dark Souls, Elden Ring, and etc. Phase 2 for the true fight is fine. I wasn't exactly blown away like I thought I would be. It's just a more aggressive and messier moveset. However, it was still fun figuring out for a no-hit challenge. I found that backing off after NIHIL resulted in better positioning away from the splatter attacks. The Trident downward stab caught me a lot even when I pressed dodge and I had stamina. This has happened to me all throughout Elden Ring, and I believe the dodge registering has a very slight delay preventing hairline dodges. There's not much in terms of interesting maneuvers in this fight. It's basically all the same reactions and movements, so I did have moments where it was mind-numbing to experience, mainly referring to phase 1. I don't know how many people feel about this, but the second phase feels like a high-octane version of Quelaag from Dark Souls. I really prefer the Omen version of this fight when it comes to the first phase. It doesn't have so many openings caused by blood rituals, plus it doesn't have NIHIL. It's no wonder how the true fight can be easily overpowered when the second phase starts. Mohg takes too much time preparing for asinine NIHIL. This may not seem like a big deal to many because of the spectacular presentation, but it matters to me a lot. If the second phase had a cutscene that transitioned into the second phase instead, then the fight would easily be in my top 10. Now let's go over each individual attack. Blood Flame Talons. This attack caught me at the most inconvenient moments, especially while trying to punish. Sometimes I wonder if Mohg purposefully triggers this attack when the player is low on stamina. This attack leads into very interesting moments. As I said before, it basically blinds the player for almost half the telegraph, so you need a fast reaction. I have never seen this in a boss fight before, so I have to give them credit for something incredibly unique for evading attacks. Dodging this attack is tricky at first. You think you're supposed to avoid the slash, however it's the combustion you must worry about, so waiting a split second later will remove you from the affected area. There is a slower telegraph version of this attack that is followed up with one horizontal swing. This was my favorite attack to punish thanks to its rewarding punish window. Blood Boon contains 3 different variants. The arc variant is a horizontal throw which happens fairly often, especially when Mohg keeps the player away with excessive shower variant attacks. This attack has a fine punish window, however stamina needs to be in check. The cone variant is a straight line blood throw which has a slightly higher speed than the arc variant. Absolutely never dodge to the right whenever these throws occur because the tracking is significantly higher and does not make sense due to these throws coming from Mohg's left hand. The shower variant was the most inconvenient attack for me. I do not use projectiles of any kind, so waiting around is very bothersome for proper combat flow. It also doesn't help that Mohg will stack these variants and walk in line of the temporary flames that adds even more time. As for evasion timings, look at it this way. Shower has the longest telegraph, arc is slightly faster, and cone is the fastest. The evasion tactic is the same, however the cone variant may need a slightly later dodge due to the tracking being just a tiny bit higher than the arc variant. Basic attack combos is where Mohg mixes up the most, which can be very confusing to grasp consistency. Thankfully, the punishes are very good after each combo. Keep an eye on the speed during these moments. When there's a clear holdback, then Mohg is done and ready for punishment, but if there's still a continuous flow, then keep a watchful eye. In Phase 2, Mohg tricks you sometimes with appearing to have a holdback, however it's just a very delayed additional swing. This is where you can also utilize attack recovery dodges. Whenever you punish another attack with a jump attack and a basic swing occurs, it'll fly right over you without a scratch. The thrust attack has one of the best openings for punishment. You can evade the entire attack without rolling if you are hugging Mohg from directly the front. This was the most satisfying for me to dodge when partially blocked by Blood Flame Talons. The second phase version called Blood Tack still has a good punish window, though you must be cautious. The attack contains additional effects that requires a slightly later dodge since tracking is also enhanced, and sometimes fire will surround Mohg, preventing an up-close punish. Airborne Assault was a bit tricky at first, and it's also situational since you do not want to be up against the walls with the tombstones when evading it. This attack outcome has the most RNG due to the amount of distance it can cause, which allows Mohg to throw significantly more blood splatter that creates problematic footing. An attack that caught me off guard a lot was the Trident Uppercut, mainly because it looked like a basic horizontal swing, however it was a faster telegraph then follows up with a combustion attack. The Spear Slam was my least favorite attack in Phase 2. It was a great visual trick in the first phase that randomly appears sometimes after combos, and it threw me off my rhythm a good bit. In the second phase, it appears to have a much tighter evasion window, and the biggest visual confusion is that the attack doesn't have any area of effect visuals. It's an invisible wave of damage. This attack isn't present in the footage for the second phase, however in my opinion it's the worst part of this entire fight, right next to NIHIL. I was curious about no-rolling strategies with Mohg, so after watching some videos on YouTube, you can tell that this fight is rather annoying for challengers because of the tracking the attacks have. So people that have achieved no-rolling take advantage of Mohg's biggest design flaw, which is low posterior recognition, where Mohg will circle around when you are behind him and does absolutely nothing, allowing players with fast weapons to exploit as long as they keep up with the pace. This event is also present in fights with Radon, Margit, and Millennia. I'm pretty sure there's even more. Which reminds me of the odd moments in the fight where Mohg doesn't do anything. Mohg has these idling moments just like Millennia where he will strafe to the sides or walk backwards. It's a very generous moment for attacking once you realize it's safe to encounter. I believe that's really all I have to say about my experience with Mohg. I do respect the fight more after mastering it, especially since Mohg appears to be the gatekeeper for the DLC. Are you comfortable with Mohg being the mandatory fight to access the DLC? If not, then what boss should be? If you enjoyed this little video essay, please check out my other Elden Ring boss fights I've done. I recently analyzed Millennia, which had an interesting outcome, plus the Shadow of the Erdtree will be here before you know it. Thank you and have a nice day.